Hey guys, for many of you who have followed me on the Urban Farmer channel, or you've read my book, I used to use landscape fabric on all of our lettuce beds. And a lot of people ask me this question. They say, hey Curtis, now that you're doing everything with the paper pot, are you spending more time weeding? And that's a very, very good question. The short answer is no, we're not. And so there's a couple ways of looking at this. So let's just look a bit broader. So I still use landscape fabric. As you can see, I've got it on the perimeter of this plot. We still integrate it into how we do things on the farm, and I find it extremely useful. But we don't use it on the beds. So the first thing is with the Salanova. Well, however, let me back up a second here. We actually do use it on beds, just not any of the types of crops you see next to me. We would use it for tomatoes or anything that was longer season. And that's what I would encourage anybody to do. You know, if you're doing a crop that has a single row and it's 10 inches or more apart, is that crop justifiable with the paper pot transplanter? It could be. It depends on how much you did. If you were planting, you know, thousands of feet of it, doing that crop with a paper pot transplanter might be worthwhile. And right now we don't have a 10-inch pot, so you would maybe go 12 inches and do every second hole in the with the 6-inch pots or something like that. So if you're doing a ton of it, it would make sense. Now in a smaller scale, like if your farm's an acre and you're gonna do you know, a couple thousand square feet of patty pan squash that are 18 inches apart, it's probably not worth doing the paper pot transplanter. You're probably better off just doing landscape fabric on the beds and then transplanting it into the hole. So it really comes down to time. Now with the case of these crops, because we save so much time in transplanting, because in a 50-foot bed, it takes somebody who's really good, like really good, maybe half hour to 45 minutes to transplant that bed. On average, it's probably about an hour to transplant that bed by hand. Now at the paper pot transplanter, we do that in about 4 minutes. So, you know, obviously, so let's just assume that it takes a person, let's say an hour to do that. Somebody who's not as fast. But the paper pot transplanter, let's just say they do 10 minutes, because maybe they're not as experienced with the transplanter as myself or maybe Mark, who works for me, is. You still got 50 minutes of saved time. So even if you had to weed this bed once with a stirrup hoe, or maybe go in and superficially pull some weeds. So I got some mallow coming in here, a bit of purslane, a bit of grass. You know, it might only take me 5 minutes to weed that bed. Say I did that 3 times, that's 15 minutes. I'm still up 35 minutes in time saved by doing the transplanting. So that's really how I look at it, and that's how we justify doing what we do. Now, there's other types of other ways you could use landscape fabric. You could landscape fabric your walkways. We do that in some of our greenhouses, and of course the perimeter. So there's still an application for landscape fabric, but we're just not using it in the same way. So hope that answers some questions. If you guys have more questions or comments like that, please leave them below. We want to keep making videos about your questions. All right guys, talk to you later.